Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe. Hello, Potteroonies. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. This week, as a film is coming out where the moon falls, and it's called Moonfall. Yeah, spoilers, sorry. Spoilers in the title for that one.
What is the world coming to?
Yes. So we'll be focusing on that film's filmmaker, and that man, of course, is the German Roland Emmerich. And as ever, I am joined by our local historian, Boaz Dix. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thanks.
Excellent. Should we go with my film first, then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, my film is The Day After Tomorrow. Why did I pick this one? Well, the bar was quite low. So... for choices, I mean, Independence Day is the obvious one. You know, I really love that film, but a lot's been said about that, so I thought it'd be silly to pick that one. You know, it's great, even though you kind of just forget that a computer virus takes down an alien mothership, but there we go.
Definitely, I think it's the best product placement in any film ever. Windows. Even aliens use Windows, you know.
Windows saves the universe. Well, the world. So I went with The Day After Tomorrow. I was really looking forward to this film when it came out way back when in 2004. Yeah, I really enjoyed it at the time. And it was kind of this resurgence of like the big disaster film, the 100%. Big, like, massive destroy everything films. I think this was kind of one of the first ones. Like, you had Independence Day already, but that was a lot of model work in that, whereas this was full CGI mayhem. One of the first ones to do that. Yeah,
and then I remember straight up off the back of this, I was hugely excited when this film came out. We talked about it constantly. I used to watch it a lot. And yeah, man, it just felt like such an insane event. And you're right, it did just crack out loads and loads of huge disaster movies, I think. There was that one core with the Earth's core that came out not long after that. And all kinds of ones, you know, even going up to, you know, San Andreas with The Rock and stuff. So there's been loads of, like, really big disaster movies, I think, coming off the back of this.
So what happens in The Day After Tomorrow? Well, we follow a scientist, a weather dude called Jack Hall, played by Dennis Quaid, and he's basically hosting this, like, environmental press conference to world leaders and saying that, you know, if we don't act now on climate change, we're all screwed or whatever. And, you know, we could end up in the next ice age. But at the start, he thinks, you know, this could happen in like 30, 50 years' time. But then things start happening, like sea buoys drop their temperature about like 13 degrees or something. And meanwhile, his son, Sam Hall, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and his friends, they go on like a school quiz in New York. And basically they get trapped in New York. And it's basically a survival film for them as these three massive supercell storms completely cover the globe and create the new ice age. And then Jack Hall and friends try and save his son, basically, whilst always trying to convince, you know, the US government to evacuate the northern states as well. So it's quite a simple story, really, of survival, and it's entertaining. Let's put it like that. Whether, you know, you believe the science is accurate, probably not. It's still a lot of fun for me. So what do you make of this one then, Boaz?
Yeah, I think, you know, even after all these years, it is still pretty cool. I do have like some issues with like the CGI, and I think maybe it's just, you know, It's just the fact that it's of its time and what have you. Like, some of it does look a little like it hasn't held up that well. But there are scenes which still do look pretty fucking amazing.
So, directing then, I do feel like this film has a very anti-Scotland message to it. Like the Scottish Ocean Weather Base, all those characters who are in it, not one of them are Scottish.
Yeah.
And they're not even attempting to do a Scottish accent. Plus, the football game that guy is watching is Celtic versus Man United, and Celtic are losing. And it's the first country to freeze as well. True. I'm like, Roland Emmerich must have something against Scotland.
Really fucking hates the Scots.
I don't know. Like an ex-wife or something Scottish.
Maybe.
I just found that quite amusing.
Yeah, that is kind of hilarious.
Being an Englishman.
Yeah. What did they do? I didn't even notice that.
I don't know. They must just couldn't have found any decent Scottish actors. Yeah. I don't know. But
that is kind of interesting. Actually, what was it? Even the helicopters that go down over Scotland, none of the crew are Scottish either. Yeah, it's not really something I thought about. But yeah, there's no Scots, even though a lot of stuff happens in Scotland.
Yeah, it just kind of clicked on this rewatch.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. The tornado sequence is quite fun, where this film is clearly set in a universe where the movie Twister doesn't exist. And a lot of the deaths are quite unintentionally funny, especially when a news reporter says, "If you look over there behind me, there's a tornado." I'm like, oh, okay, where all the destruction is happening, where everyone is running away from, and you should probably be running away from too. Thank you for pointing that out.
Exactly, no shit. It looks like it's 15 feet in front of you, yeah. Get the fuck out of there, you moron.
And of course he gets swatted by a giant billboard.
I think that's probably my favourite shot in the entire film. I don't know why, but I do find it, like, amusing in some sort of sick, perverse way, because it's just like, you know, it's like, oh man, it's a storm. Jesus, isn't this crazy? Wouldn't it be bad if something happened to me? You fool. You goddamn idiot.
Yeah. But I did like the reveal of the cleaner opening the door after the tornadoes have passed and half the building is just gone. That was a great visual there.
Yeah, that was really awesome.
I quite like the sequence where the 3 British helicopters crash land and like one of the pilots opens the door and he freezes to death instantly. I know rapid freezing probably isn't possible, but it looks great.
It does look cool.
You know, if they were going down the more realistic route, the film would be like really boring and long. So I really didn't mind the narrative choice there. It works brilliantly, you know, quite near the end in the New York library with that sequence.
Yeah, I quite liked when New York's going to get hit by a giant wave and you have that long shot, you know, really far in the distance of, you know, the Statue of Liberty and a wave just going right up to the, you know, the neck basically of it. That was cool.
Yeah, that's my favourite shot. My favourite sequence, actually. Sam Hall, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and friends decide to leave this guy's really nice apartment, which is really high up, which seems a bit stupid, but hey. And you have these, as you said, like great shots of waves ploughing through New York, and the Statue of Liberty doesn't get destroyed for once, which I thought was a nice and considerate of the filmmakers not to destroy her. But I love the shot where the camera is almost riding the waves as the water approaches the characters in the library. That was really nice.
That's really cool. When it's going over the bus, you know, the guys in the bus and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where everybody's just running like hell and you got the camera, you know, from the bus and the bus driver and they're like, what the fuck's going on? And everybody's like clambering down their bus and off of other cars, and they're like, "What on earth is going on?" And he looks at like his wind mirror, and you're like, "Oh shit," you know, and just a close up of him, which is just like, "Oh fucking hell," it's just swept away. The ship going into the city, just like there's a fucking ship in the city.
Yeah,
that was cool. I really like how even that was directed because the scale of it does look pretty huge. Like there's a really giant ship just flying through the, you know, that looked pretty cool. Whole sequence with when they're going to actually save his son and they fall through some building or whatever, and you know his friend has to sacrifice himself or whatever because he's dragging them all down.
Oh yeah,
and that was really cool.
I always like it in scenes where like glass is cracking. Like it just creates great suspense immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, great touches of subtle slow motion as Frank falls. And on Dennis Quaid's reaction, great slow motion there. I did like that sequence a lot as well.
Yeah.
Have you got a favourite sequence?
Yeah, probably favourite shot or whatever is that reporter being hit by a billboard.
It's funny.
It is kind of funny.
Directing score, what are you going for?
Yeah, man. I think it's entertaining enough. I don't know, maybe like an 8.
I feel like with his films, there's not much fat on the bones, you know, of his films. There's always something happening, be it massive scale or quite small scale, and I think you have that here. I think certainly Roland Emmerich these days does go with CGI scale a bit too much sometimes. I think that's definitely the case of Midway, but obviously with this you can't really create those big spectacles without it, obviously. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, you know, even though it is a big disaster film, it's a lot of fun. So I'll go like 7.8, I think.
I think if I were to say my least favourite visual effect, because I said like some of the CGI is pretty spotty, but as many of the scenes we've just said, those are like, you know, really good effects, great, you know, set pieces. I think one of my least favourite is actually, you know, where they're getting chased by the wolves, because just I don't buy the wolves.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird. It's just like every time they come really close, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
That whole scene almost felt like it was playing homage to Jurassic Park and the Velociraptors. And I thought it was pretty good, but maybe they should have stuck with some, like, I don't know, tried to make it practical in some way, because I don't think the wolves really looked that great. Yeah,
I think they certainly tried to hide it with making a lot of those scenes look quite dark. If you notice, a lot of the wolves are in like shadows.
Yeah.
So they're not in very good lighting, and I think you could tell that, the effects at the time were not great for like furry stuff. Furry animals. So screenplay then. I quite like the sense of like impending doom in this film. It never really lets up. There's always some sort of like rumble of dangerous weather happening. You know, the turbulence on the airplane Jake Gyllenhaal is on with his friends, making a food cart go through the plane looks scary, you know, and nearly hitting that air stewardess. 4 Ocean Boys dropping 13 degrees with the great acting from Ian Holm. The hundreds of birds arriving in New York, but quite early on in this film, there's a scene in Japan where the hailstones are the size of bowling balls. It's a great looking scene, but we never come back to it. We see large hailstones again briefly, but it just felt that the filmmakers were like, well, we need a scene outside of America and the UK to make it feel more global. Yeah. But the Japan scene was like less than 3 minutes, it felt like. It just felt like they were like checking off a list to make the film feel global. Like, right, that's that scene done. Let's go back to America where all the good shit happens. So I felt like it was a shame and a little cynical that we never go back to Japan, to be honest.
Well, I think if they had, you know, if you're going to do something like that, and at least in all the other areas, there is some major character that is like located there. So, you know, otherwise, that scene is a bit off. It just comes out of nowhere. I think you're right. It is to make you feel like, oh, this is happening to everybody and it's equally horrible. But it's like, I don't know. It's not that connected with the plot or the flow. And it is sort of a strange scene. I think maybe it's meant to make you think maybe this Japanese guy is going to be a main character and then he dies because you're like, oh, well, a lot of people die. But I think it is kind of a waste of a scene. Maybe they could have linked it into the plot more. Then it would have even been more memorable. Otherwise, you know, you'd think, and then there was this bit where some random guy got killed in Japan.
I mean, this film definitely starts off like this film is going to be a multiple storyline type film. Like, you know, Love Actually it was for the romantic genre, for the rom-com genre. And, you know, this was going to be the big multi-storyline film for the disaster film. But it never really turns out that way. It mainly just ends up being Jack Hall and Sam Hall story, you know, and everything else gets left behind. So I feel like the film should have been a lot longer. Like, you know, that very short Japanese scene, there are a few storylines that just don't get enough screen time to care about. Like Peter, the kid with cancer, just doesn't get enough screen time to care about. like the president even dies off screen, which was very anticlimactic. The ending for me feels quite epic, mainly because of the amazing score. But imagine if those storylines got more love. This film would have been incredibly epic to me if it was a lot longer and those other storylines got more screen time. You know?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That makes a lot of sense.
I feel like the suspense sequence with the three guys on the tank being chased by the wolves was a tad rushed, but I soon forgot about that because Sam realizes that they're in the eye of the storm and the temperature is starting to fall rapidly. So they have to get back to the library like right now. But what's great about it is that Jack is in the same eye of the storm and both scenes are cut together like really nicely to create like great suspense. And I like the fact that they both close the doors, a pair of doors, and the freeze keeps coming. But what's really interesting from a script point of view is that we only see like Jack and Jason have survived and not the other characters in New York. You know, we have to wait a good 15 to 20 minutes to see if they've survived or not, which I thought was a great way to end the film because for at least a split second, you're like, oh shit, did Sam survive? But of course they do. But, you know, it had me fooled for like half a second. Yeah. But I like the idea there, though.
Yeah, no, I think that was good. I mean, it makes a good reveal when they finally do get into the library.
Very Hollywoody ending, but, you know.
But yeah, no, I definitely like that because with the freezing, I kind of even forgot about that. Like, because I know that it freezes and they get in the library, and I thought, I seem to just remember, okay, yeah, and then they were safe. But I love how like the ice is literally chasing them down the holes. It's going down the walls. It's the ceiling, everything. Like there is no escape. And you know they close the door and it just keeps coming. Yeah, that was pretty freaky.
What I do like about this film is the fact that it is just a pure survival disaster film. There's no attempt to create like a giant radiator to reheat the earth or something. There's no mad scientist who's created a weather machine to stop the supercells. No, we just follow these characters and see if they survive or not. That's it. You know, yes, the dialogue is very on the nose. The love story is rubbish. I just like the fact that there's just this very simple survive or die aspect to the film. I feel like there must have been like a conversation with a producer and Roland Emmerich, and Emmerich saying, "But what if aliens come out of the storm?" And no, no aliens in this one. I can imagine that happening in pre-production or something.
Yeah. Although I want to see that film, this mixed with Independence
really?
Day. Yeah, that would be great.
I mean, we're getting Moonfall, so that makes up for
true.
that. Yeah, there's some good lines. Why, for the love of God, would you aggravate the vice president? Because my 17-year-old son knows more science than he does. One of my favorite moments, just before the guys in Scotland die. The generator is failing in Scotland, and Adrian Lester finds a bottle of whiskey and says, "Hey, is there any chance that this will work? It will run on this." And Ian Holmes says, "Are you mad? That's a 12-year-old Scotch." Then reveals the 3 glasses. I thought that was just a lovely moment to end their scenes. You can't burn books. No, absolutely not. You want to freeze to death?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that was fun. You got a favourite line then?
Probably the Scotch one. There was that amusing one where they're arguing about whether to burn Nietzsche.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's my favourite.
That was funny.
Line, yeah.
He goes, "No, not Nietzsche. Why? He's a chauvinist pig." What did he say? Like you cheated on his wife or something?
He was in love with his sister.
He was in love with his sister. He's like, he was not a chauvinist pig, but he was in love with his sister. And then the other one is just like, listen, there's some law books that we can
still a genius or something. Yeah, the other guy says, excuse me, you guys, there's a whole section on tax law down here that we can burn.
Yeah.
Screenplay score, Boaz, what are you going for the day after tomorrow, which is a Tuesday?
Yeah, it is. Day after yesterday is today, which is Sunday.
It is.
I'm a genius. So,
this is going to be a long podcast.
7.8. There we go.
Screenplay score for me. I like the fact that it is quite simple, that it's basically, a survival film, and and kind of becomes like a rescue film at the end. The dialogue is very on the nose.
Yeah.
There's a few love stories there that just don't really work at all, I don't think. I mean, the acting is okay in those moments, but the dialogue's... Roland Emmerich doesn't do dialogue very well, or should literally hire writers that do better dialogue, because his dialogue is bad. It's not great. I know there's all this talk that in this film the science is probably not very accurate, but I don't really mind. I mean, I love the fast freezing stuff because it just makes for a good film in those moments, even though it's probably not possible. I'll go like a 7.6, I think. Acting then, I love the acting from Ian Holm where he's trying to like cheer up his colleagues and says, "Luckily, we've got our own Jenny and enough tea and biscuits to sink a ship. Oh, we'll be fine. As long as the loo doesn't back up again." They all laugh a little bit, and then one by one, their faces drop like, we're all screwed. We're gonna die. But Ian Holm is the best one because he looks terrified and he's hardly doing anything. It's just brilliant acting. Again, he's on the phone to Dennis Quaid, and they find out that they're going into a new ice age, and the acting just goes up a notch on that phone call. Ian Holm is just just great in this film, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I like that homeless guy. I thought he was nice. It's quite a charming act, you know.
And his dog. I was so glad the dog didn't die. I was like, oh, thank God. The dog lives.
Thank dog.
I mean, that is one good thing that Roland Emmerich is good at, is directing dogs. Like, there's that great moment in Independence Day when
where it jumps,
the dog jumps away from the explosion. And then in this one, the dog runs quickly to him as the freeze comes in the, when they're all by the fire.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was a good moment. I think my favourite Dennis Quaid moment is when he's on the phone to his son, Sam, and the water level keeps going up and up on Sam in the library. When Dennis Quaid says, "I'll come for you, son." It always gives me chills a bit, because you get the reaction from Stella Ward, his wife.
Because it's so cold in the bloody movie.
And she's like, "What?" And you get no real inkling that he's going to go after him. It's just the first great emotional moment in the film for me from Dennis Quaid. Favorite performance for me in this film is Ian Holm. I just think he's just a great subtle actor and one of our just great actors from this country, and he's sorely missed in my opinion. But yeah, just brings great heart to this film. Who's your favorite performance?
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you actually.
Acting score, Bowers, what are you going for?
I'll go 7.6.
I mean, the acting is fine. Ian Holm definitely brings some great subtlety to it. I don't think everyone else does amazing work. They're just good, so I'll go like a 7.7. Right, let's add up the scores then for The Day After Tomorrow. The Day After Tomorrow gets 39.5, so not amazing. But I still like it. It's a good guilty pleasure.
Yeah, it's watchable. It's nice, Yeah, I don't mean it like that, but you get what I mean.
Right, Mr. Historian Boaz Nix, what was your pick for Roland Emmerich films?
I went with Midway slash
Pearl Harbor
slash
Marshall Islands.
It's a lot of shit goes on in this. This is essentially the first 6 months of the Pacific theater of World War II. It's like literally the first 6 months, and then Midway.
So why did you pick this one?
One, I mean, I've heard of it for a little bit, and I've kind of wanted to watch it for some time, despite the criticisms I've heard of it. I've heard it's actually pretty historically accurate, so that's another thing I've always kind of wanted to see. And I just love World War II. I'm absolutely obsessed with the Second World War. So any chance to just...
Is it like every subject you're like, oh, is there a war film here somewhere?
Yeah.
Yes,
much,
there is this week.
Yeah, there's a World War II film that I could pick, and yes, all right, let's go.
Yeah, I was pretty interested in this to see how Roland Emmerich does, because obviously, as we've said in Day After Tomorrow, the bar is pretty low when it comes to Roland Emmerich films. So it was interesting watching this. I feel like this is a classic case of cramming way too much into a 2-hour film. I think this is a case of this is probably better as a TV show than a film.
Yeah, I think a mini-series or something.
But obviously you need a film's budget to pull off these action scenes. So
I don't think that's true at all. I don't even think that's even slightly true.
Oh, well, but if it's HBO, then yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, HBO, I would even say Netflix almost for sure, because they'll fund literally anything. But yeah, if you're talking about regular TV, yeah sure. But, nowadays, I mean, come on, AMC, HBO, they've got the clout to afford something like that. Or Disney.
So I'm afraid to ask this question. What happens in Midway?
I'm going to, tone it down quite a bit. Well, it actually begins with the US ambassador to Japan. He's not the ambassador to Japan. He's like the chief intelligence officer of the United States Navy. He visits Japan and he talks to Admiral Yamamoto, who will be his arch enemy, I suppose, about the possibility of war between Japan and America. And then he leaves, and he's been constantly telling the Navy that, he reckons they're going to attack Pearl Harbor. And that's where the film kind of properly begins, during the attack of Pearl Harbor. I would say the main character, I do think there, obviously, without question, is a main character, and that would be pilot Dickie Best.
Played by Ed Skrein.
Yeah, he seems to be involved in a lot of the actions, on the ground, where it also goes through like the admirals and the intelligence guys, and on both navies for quite some time. So it basically goes from Pearl Harbor to the raid on the Marshall Islands to the attack on Tokyo, the Doolittle raid, and all of this sets up for finally the Battle of Midway. Yeah, which is close fought, but it becomes an American victory, and it's the turning point in the war against Japan, basically, where it's decisively in America's favor, despite, at the beginning, it's not going good for them at all.
So what did you make of this one? Do you like the historical accuracy, or did they cram too much in for you? Or
I actually do like the historical accuracy. Yeah. It's just an attention to detail. I know, obviously it doesn't give you a lot of time to learn about these characters as just like characters. And you're cramming quite a lot of info. But I kind of did like that. I did like that they're really going through, debriefing rooms and going through all of the minutiae of this is happening, and this is happening, and that's happening. And even during the battle to get the times exactly right, they constantly put on a clock. This happened at this exact time,
Yeah, there's a lot of title cards.
So they're trying to get as many things close to the truth as possible, which I think also means, there are quite a lot of characters. I do think, though, Dickie Best is definitely the most realized one, because you're around him a lot.
Yeah.
But there are quite a lot of people around, bit parts. There are quite a lot of bit parts. I do kind of appreciate that. It's kind of a bit much for a 2-hour movie. However, I do respect that these are many different individual men, that they're all he did this and he did this, rather than most screenwriters would be to make composite characters. That's what most screenwriters would do in this situation. You would say, you take 5 or 6 actions that some of these guys did, and you just say, yeah, one guy did this, but they don't really want to do that.
Which is a brave thing to do, I would say.
It is a brave thing to do, because again, it's a lot of shit to keep track of, and God knows I don't remember all the people that died and that they mourned over. I've got no idea. No. I know I saw a lot of characters. I'm not sure I really remember too many, but so it is a very brave thing for them to do, to try and cram into a movie. You got to respect them for that.
So directing, then, the attack on Pearl Harbor kind of just happens with no suspense at all. The US Navy sailors only notice them as they're right on them, which I found a bit odd. Then all the shots are kind of just filled with planes, ships, bullets, and explosions. More planes, ships, bullets, and explosions. Not to say that's a bad thing, but, it's just really intense stuff, which I quite liked. But the sound, though, that was really intense. Like, my subwoofer went into overdrive, like the Japanese have invaded my speakers too with this massive drone.
Yeah.
They're
going to come out of the screen or something.
I'm like, what the hell is going on? I felt like checking my door to see if there are actual Japanese outside, planes.
Yeah.
It's so loud. It was on the normal volume, They really just ramped that stuff up. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Nice. I did kind of like that it sort of came out of nowhere, because I suppose, that would be the experience. It's both a good and a bad thing. Like, it would have been cool if there was some suspense of, I don't know when it's going to happen, and then it happens, rather than, oh, what's going on here? Oh, we're in Pearl Harbor. Bang! Oh, shit. All right. Everybody's dying. All right. Okay, I see what's going on.
I know it was kind of the point of that. I get that, but it's done in a lot of wide shots. Like this, when they see them, there's a big wide shot and like loads of Japanese Zeros coming, and like, do you not hear that? Do you not hear these hundreds of planes coming towards you earlier? But I must say though, the fire CGI wasn't great, especially in like the tighter shots on the actors, and you're like, they're on a sound stage with green screen all around them. It didn't look terribly convincing.
Yeah, it was kind of a shame as well, because the ship basically splits in half, and they've got to climb the rope, and his hands are burning and all that, and the ship's on fire. I think you're right. You're like, oh man, this does look a bit iffy. I think what's kind of strange is I would say this film, more so than The Day After Tomorrow, has a lot. Well, it's a lot of CGI. There's so much CGI.
Oh yeah.
And just like I said before,
more bullets, more explosions.
And like I just said before, it's like even with that, there was spotty CGI in the previous film. That there's quite a lot of spotty CGI in this one. You're like, oh man, that plane looks odd. Damn, those bombs look strange. That explosion looks off. It's like there is quite a lot where you're just like,
like the explosions in water. Yeah. Was dodgy.
It's like maybe this could have used a few minutes in the oven.
Yeah. I thought the overall CGI of the carriers, the battleships, and the aircraft were actually quite good. I quite like those, the CGI on the actual vehicles. It's just like explosions and stuff like that, which weren't amazing.
I kind of felt like damaged planes looked a bit off. So, for example, during the Marshall Islands thing, where he slices a bomber in half, and the bomber crashes onto the deck. I don't know. That seemed a bit weird. Yeah. I can't put my hand on exactly why it seems weird. I just know it seems weird. And or when the plane was, they had a death during training, and he fell off of the ship, and then the ship hit into the plane. That again looked a bit strange.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that just destroyed planes look a bit odd.
Yeah. Funny you say that. It may have looked a bit CGI ropey, but I actually appreciated those scenes where a rookie pilot has admitted to Dick Best that he has lost his confidence as a pilot. So they go out on like a scouting mission, but the pilot is killed because he couldn't take off properly and, falls off the end of the ship, as you said. And the plane gets run down by the carrier. And a few scenes later, you see a plane like crash land on the carrier and slides off the side. And I would imagine a lot of war films wouldn't show those types of deaths because it's not very cinematic and they don't want to see their country in a bad light. But again, it just shows historical accuracy, and it just shows that, the aircraft carriers were like a really dangerous place to be during that time. And this technology was fairly new at the time and not well tested. Is that right?
Yeah. I think that would be a great assessment of it. Nobody really knew the full capabilities of an aircraft carrier until, these fleet actions,
Yeah, I just really like the fact that they included that, whereas a lot of filmmakers, I don't think that they would, just to show that literally just landing and taking off is really dangerous, not just the actual dogfights, The actual battle of Midway was pretty thrilling, but I had a few problems with it. I feel like the whole battle was a little unfocused. There's like a random American submarine with characters that we've never met before. When they get depth charged. I didn't care much for them because they were so detached from the rest of the story.
Yeah, you've literally just met them. Yeah.
Yeah. You have two different squadrons doing torpedo runs, which visually looked exactly the same while trying to work out who these guys are again. Oh, they're dead. Oh well. And you have all that before we get to Luke Evans and Ed Skrein's characters, who I could remember. But again, visually, their attacks felt very samey. They start their dive bombing, and there's the cockpit shot, then your bird's eye view shot. It's literally that for each dive bomb. Time and time again. Ed Skreин's dive had some variation though.
Yeah, and constant switches between them and the spotter who is counting down it's 2,000,
the altitude.
The altitude. And I mean, that scene does play out exactly the same several times. So you're like, it's it's starting to lose its impact now.
I'm like, they kind of just didn't change up the rhythm of it. It just felt a bit visually uninspired, and they didn't really know how else to direct those action scenes. But they do change it up a bit with Ed Skreин's dive, with some variation. You have this binocular shot from the Japanese officer on the carrier. He sees the dive bomber coming, then out of nowhere, the bomb appears in the foreground. That was pretty cool. And Ed Skreин's plane, because he goes beyond the 180 altitude and pulls up really late, his plane clips the water as he pulls up. I thought that was really cool. Ultimately, it lacked some visual flair to me, with a lot of the dive bombs before that. I'm not surprised that the last attack was so short, because it felt like they just run out of ideas of how to shoot it differently when Best destroys that last carrier.
I think they try to get it a little different because he is quite close to the ship. So I think it's meant to be, did he survive? Because obviously they play with that, and then he's still alive. So they do have him pull off really late. It's almost like, maybe he's actually been gotten by an explosion. Oh, I liked when Tokyo was getting attacked during the Doolittle raid. I thought that was shot pretty well. Where the Emperor's palace is literally shaking, and people are wandering around like, oh shit. And they tell the Emperor, Your Majesty, we need to get you to a bunker. And he's like, what the fuck? And how he kind of looks across, the palace, and you see, bombers smacking Tokyo, runs across, let's get the hell out of here. I thought that looked pretty cool. They could have done that from the bomber's point of view and actually had set that all up. But I like that they tried. They decided to do it from what was the Emperor seeing at that point. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked that stuff, but I feel like that's the type of thing that they could have just had one of the American soldiers just say, "Oh, they were successful in bombing Tokyo" or whatever, and not. I don't feel like you needed to see it in this film, but I know they're trying to film like a really important event in American history, but it does feel very detached, those scenes, to the Battle of Midway, to me.
Yeah, I do feel they are trying to cover quite a lot of ground. I do appreciate that it's shown, is the point I'm making, and that all of these events are shown. Okay. But yeah, I do agree on I don't agree on a visual level. I think, visually, very nice to add more scenes. So from a directing standpoint, I appreciate all the extra scenes. I think you're more close to the mark on a kind of writing standpoint of just, there is quite a lot going on here. And maybe you could make up characters who are friends of characters so that they can all be somewhat, so maybe like the movie Pearl Harbor, which wasn't historically accurate, at all. But the fact is they did many things. They did Pearl Harbor and many battles afterwards and other things, but they kind of tried to bind these together by having characters do things they had no rights being able to do, what was it? Because actually the Doolittle raid, I remember he was part of that, which he wouldn't have possibly been part of that. You can't be in the Navy and then in the Army, that's just not working.
Yeah. Do you feel like they made this film because of the reaction to the Pearl Harbor film?
Yeah, I think probably. Yeah, I think what was it? because I like all these history stuff. And guys that go over Pearl Harbor, if they've even got like a passing knowledge of history, they tear the shit into Pearl Harbor. Like anybody that gets their history from movies, I think you should rethink what you're doing. First of all, like, a movie can't really be that accurate. But yeah, I think a lot of people got, plenty of misconceptions on the history of the Pacific War from Pearl Harbor. So I think he was trying to like, okay, I'm doing a Midway film, but while I'm here, I might as well backtrack and kind of get a few things correct.
Yeah, use the same character to do everything. Actually, I really love the way they ended this film. We have like a little scene for each character. Then you have like a freeze frame go into a sepia tone, a bit of text of historical facts come up, which is really nice to read and really horrible to read with some. Then like a picture of the real person is dissolved into. I like the fact that they took their time to do that for each person, showing some real respect to these real people. And I've never really seen that done before in like a credit sequence in a film. It literally takes like a good 15 minutes to go through all these characters, and I really appreciated that. That was actually probably one of my favorite scenes, was that credits scene, to be fair. I thought it was great. I think my favorite scene, though, other than the credit scene, was the battle on the Marshall Islands. But it weirdly starts with like a comical moment where the fighters like drop a torpedo into the water, and the camera follows the torpedo all the way to the hull of a Japanese destroyer, and all you hear is this dong, and it just like snaps into. I'm not sure they should have added the comical dong in the sound mix, because it was unintentionally funny to me.
Yeah, no, it was kind of hilarious.
But the action later was pretty cool, where Dick Best does the dive bomb on the airfield for the first time, and pulls up at the last minute. That was really well done.
Yeah, and destroys the hangar and all the planes and stuff.
And then the dogfight was really cool, where the Japanese Zeros come out of nowhere against the sunlight. Cool. That was really a cool dogfight.
Doesn't it get like really foggy at one point? I think he goes way up into the clouds, and the thing keeps like appearing and disappearing, and like goes straight over his wings. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he gets strafed,
and then the final scene for that is you think they're out of the woods, and then the bomber, a bunch of bombers try and bomb their aircraft carrier, and one of the guys jumps in one of the planes and shoots down one of the bombers that was coming straight under the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fictional, but that actually happened. I looked that up, so that's pretty crazy. It looks like something...
Really?
Yeah, no, that 100% happened. That looks like something that would just be Hollywood fluff, like made up. The Japanese are using a bomber as like a kamikaze plane, and a dude literally jumped into a parked plane turret and, eviscerated the bomber. Yeah, that 100% happened, and he was promoted on the spot. Jesus. So that did occur. It sounds unbelievable, but it was true. Again, didn't need to put that in, but it's a good thing. That's amazing. It's crazy, but it happened.
What's your favourite scene then, Boaz? Or favourite shot?
I think my favourite scene, strangely, is like where one of the, and this might go into script, I think, more than actually how it's shot. But it's when one of the admirals of the aircraft carriers, he decides to stay on his ship, and he gives like a speech to the other Japanese. He's like, because the commander failed, we can't let them have this ship, so we're going to detonate it. All of you guys, go, but we're going down with the ship. And, you've got like his second in command is like, I want to stay with you too. And it's like, then we'll watch the sun, we'll watch the moon together, and it's like, what the fuck, But yeah, he kind of decides to go down with the ship. I just thought that was kind of badass.
I actually had that moment in acting, because I actually enjoyed the Japanese actors more than the American ones, to be honest.
I think a lot of the Japanese actors were really good.
Yeah, especially that scene where, that the older commander tells the younger one to no, save yourself, you're too young. The admiral or whatever goes down with the ship, not you. Go save yourself. I thought that was just greatly played in an acting sense.
Yeah, that was pretty cool
for me.
So as to like an actual shot, I'm trying to think. Yeah, actually, probably when he blows up the hangar, I think I might Go with that. Yeah, in the Marshall Islands, that was really good. Actually, no, I think I would go with the one that I had mentioned before, the whole sequence when they bombed Japan, because I remembered I said that. But yeah, I would actually say that's probably my favourite. The Doolittle Raid. I think I did like that shot. I just thought it was shot really well.
Yeah, mine is the Marshall Islands attack. So directing score for me, this probably is directed better than Day After Tomorrow. But again, I don't want to get into like a CGI versus practical a debate again, but it's hard to fully enjoy this film and fully appreciate it when you know a lot of what's happening on screen is not real. It's difficult to enjoy it as much as possible.
It looks like a really, really good, like, I don't know, like video game or something.
And there's even like video game angles, that you would have whilst you're actually trying to operate a plane during a video game, that third person view that you have that quite a few times in this film. And it's just like they kind of like directed this film in a video game engine and then just kind of just moved the camera a little bit to make sure it doesn't look like a video game sometimes. But then just use that angle in certain shots anyway. Because I can't be asked now. Just leave it like that. That's fine.
Maybe this was, from Battlefield 5 or something. I think, I think a lot of this would have even looked much better if it was at night time. But then you couldn't do that because then it would be historically inaccurate. I mean, they could have just got, fuck historically inaccuracy. Just make it dark. And then I reckon you would have hid a lot of the shoddy stuff. Because that's what some studios do. You put the third act battle at night and you can really kind of hide a lot of the questionable stuff. Yeah, you can hide the CGI. I think that this film would have benefited from that. Because it looks pretty good, but it's just, there's some scenes where you're like, no, man, that just doesn't look real.
Yeah, I know I keep going on about this, but I am a bit of a Chris Nolan fanboy. And knowing the fact that Chris Nolan used real Spitfires in Dunkirk, he actually strapped IMAX cameras to the Spitfires. I know like those scenes aren't terribly cinematic in terms of the movement and how dramatic those aircraft move, but it's real though. That's real action. So there's a big difference with those two films with the way they're shot, and I would kind of prefer to watch Dunkirk again because I know it's real. I'm just like, wow, that looks incredible, even though like the movement isn't quite there. But the movement would be historically accurate because they're doing it for real, But I don't kind of mind the CGI with all the bullets and stuff at times. I think they kind of had to do that. I know, obviously for historical accuracy, but just again to kind of mask their own CGI with the planes and stuff. So to just give that extra intensity, I guess. So I'll go with like a 7.9 for directing. How about you, sir?
I'll go 8.
Screenplay then. I don't mind so much the film covering the events of Pearl Harbor, but what I do mind is suddenly learning that Dick Best, Ed Skrine's character, went to the same academy to a sailor, Roy, that had just died at Pearl Harbor, which I think was the guy who shot down one of the Japanese planes on the gun turret. And that's all I know about him, other than his name. And then there's a funeral scene, and then Dick Best does this big speech about him, and I had no emotional connection to him because I'm still trying to work out who they're talking about. So it just felt a bit pointless of those early scenes around Pearl Harbor, like after Pearl Harbor. I'm like, all I know is his name. That's it. And like he shot down a plane. That's it.
I think it would have made the attack a lot more personal because everybody's talking about the attack and obviously it's bad. And a lot of people have lost people in it. They're like, we need to get back at the Japanese for this. And I think you're right. The fact that you start with the attack, you have no connection to these people whatsoever, only afterwards to some of them. I think maybe if you had a good... even 20 minutes just on the base, learning everybody's names, build some character. And then out of nowhere, people get shut up. I think, you would have actually given a damn, especially like, with his friend, you say, they do these speeches about him. They go to his funeral. There's this whole thing. I mean, he even finds his body, and he's like charred, and he's only got his ring because he was like, can you find? He wore this ring, and it's like, oh my god, like that seems to be the only thing left of him. He looks like just ash. And it's unfortunate, but it would have been downright heartbreaking if you had actually seen them connect for 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh my god.
Literally just have a scene with them together.
Yeah, just one.
Just one.
So I reckon that is a big missed opportunity. They could have had 15 minutes in Pearl Harbor to get everybody tight-knit, kind of know everybody.
Not even that, really.
Just something, yeah.
Something to learn about their relationship. All I know is his name. And he performed valiantly at Pearl Harbor. Oh, and Dick Best knows him. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. I quite like the way the story goes where the intelligence officer Edwin Layton and General Nimitz, played by Woody Harrelson, they manipulate the Japanese and Washington messages to confirm that the real Japanese target is Midway. I must admit, I had to rewind those scenes a few times to fully understand it. But I felt it was quite satisfying to watch, and it must have been difficult to condense a lot of that complex war history into a few scenes, but I found it was quite well done in the end. But I kind of wanted more of the intelligence work in this film, because I found that the most interesting part of the film in some ways, of how they're manipulating their messages and things, ignoring the messages from Washington and what have you, because of how accurate the intelligence was. I kind of wanted more of that stuff rather than some of the action.
I especially like how they got one of the aircraft carriers. What was it? Was it the Lexington? I can't remember what they called it. The Enterprise. That's the
Enterprise. Yeah. I know one of them's called the Enterprise.
Where they were talking about how it was sent to the South, and they were like, no, it's going to be Midway. And they send a message to Halsey, say something like, we want you to kind of pretend you've got found by the Japanese so that area isn't secure, so you have to leave, so you could disobey a direct order. And how he just kind of burns that letter, and he's like, nobody ever saw this. To his thing. And basically does that, gets spotted by the Japanese and then moves. But then, so they have an extra aircraft carrier in the battle.
Yeah. I mean, I was surprised it took them so long to get back to Midway. I mean, I don't know why they didn't go to light speed to get back.
Wait, who? What, the Americans? Oh, the Enterprise.
Called the Enterprise.
Yeah. That went completely over my head.
That joke fell like a lead balloon, but oh well. The foreshadowing isn't great, where Dick Best is practicing landing on the carrier at the start, if their flaps were jammed and running out of fuel, and they kind of come in sideways, and I was like, yeah, that's going to happen near the end. That's going to happen again near the end. Then as the end happens, where they're all wondering where Best is he going to come back or not? That was kind of annoying, because I was like, yeah, of course he's going to come back. Oh, and he did. There he is. And he's flying exactly the way he did at the start when he was practicing. So, yeah, that was not well hidden, really. No, not particularly subtle, but there we go. There's some cool lines. We have awakened a sleeping giant and filled him with terrible resolve. I think that's from one of the Japanese officers Yamamoto. Near the start. I got Tora vibes from that. We're going to give them a shellacking, which I thought was quite funny.
Yeah, I think that's my favourite line. We're going to give them a shellacking.
We're going to give them a shellacking. What I love about this film as well is this film has John Ford in it, the legendary filmmaker who did Stagecoach and a lot of classic westerns in the 40s and 50s. He's like, holy shit, get to the roof. Oh, that's John Ford. That's pretty crazy. I'm like, that's hilarious. And then he gets shot
he's
in the shoulder shooting. Or something. Did we get the shot? Yeah, keep shooting. I thought that was brilliant. Definitely wanted more John Ford in there. But I think my favourite line goes to Woody Harrelson, where he's like, I don't care if he consults coffee grounds while doing the boogie woogie, as long as the intel is good.
Yeah, that's
that's my favourite line. So screenplay score for me, again, I just think this film falls into the trap of, I think it probably would have been better if this was a TV show and not a film, just to get more character nuance and just longer scenes, I guess, to give, a lot of these characters more to do. And it just feels like it's very disjointed and very episodic, and for me, I don't even think you even need like that raid on Japan. I think, you could have just had some officer just say that this happened if you're doing a film. But if you want to add that, have that like a whole episode in a TV show, I think that would have been so much better. So I just think this is a classic case of they're just cramming way too much into this film. And it does feel a little disjointed. And again, dialogue wise, it's not great. It's not great. There are a few good lines here and there, but a lot of the dialogue that like Ed Skrein has isn't great at all. I know he's supposed to be really cocky, but it just doesn't land very well to me. But I definitely appreciate some of the historical accurate stuff, like how dangerous landing on aircraft carriers are. So I definitely appreciate that. So I'll go like a 7.7, I think, for screenplay.
That's pretty generous.
How about you, sir? Do you reckon?
No. I mean, it's up to you. It's up to you.
I might change it.
No. You carry on.
I'm 0 for 2
really?
so far this year. So
yeah. No, you are. Yeah,
you've won both episodes.
Yeah. I'll do maybe a 7.4. I do appreciate, as we were saying, like the amount of stuff covered. I think, again, I have the same criticism as you. Yeah, maybe it could have just been a little longer, or you could have cut down on most of the stuff that isn't Midway itself, so you can have more time for Midway.
I mean, you could have definitely just completely cut out, like, Pearl Harbor, really. Maybe have it as just written text at the start, which a lot of films do. Because we've seen, I mean, you can't beat a better film like Tora 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 in terms of...
the actual attack.
Of Pearl Harbor, so... So acting then, got any performances that stand out for you? Any good performances?
Dennis Quaid. I like him because he was quite like really rugged, really kind of,
yeah.
So,
I feel like he was overdoing it a bit to me.
But he was fun.
Some of the accents though on display here were quite bad, in my opinion. Like, Ed Skrein's accent was really annoying, especially the first hour.
Yeah, his was really irritating.
I'm not sure what he was going for. Like an Italian-American Cockney at times, it felt like. I'm like, what is this accent? I've not heard this before. What is going on? Even some of the American accents from American actors were bad. I'm not sure what the hell Dennis Quaid was doing, to be honest. I felt like both him and Ed Skrein were trying way too hard to be these like really tough sailors, officers. Ed Skrein does get better when he becomes less cocky, to be fair, but Dennis Quaid looked quite ill, to be honest. I don't know. Yeah, I know he's getting on a bit now, but it just felt like something's not right with you, dude. I'm not sure you should be acting in this film. Get help.
I didn't think he was that bad.
Yeah, I certainly enjoyed the Japanese actors more than the American ones, to be fair.
Admiral Yamamoto, the actor that plays him, he was pretty awesome. I like that young Japanese guy. I thought he was pretty cool. I thought he had like an arc and stuff. I thought it's kind of interesting that how he's introduced. He wins a game against Admiral Nagumo. War games, where he's playing the Americans and Nagumo is playing the Japanese, and he sinks 3 aircraft carriers, and Yamamoto is like, what's going on here? And he's like, he cheated, like he cheated in the war game. And he was like, all I did is I had that the Americans were already at Midway. And he goes, no, that's not going to happen. That they put a trap on us. No, he's like, they're actually going to come from Pearl. So, redo it again, but they're coming from Pearl. But then the irony is that they did lay a trap for them. They literally were there, and they did win. But they won even better than that.
Yeah,
which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's really good foreshadowing. Actually, I really like that. It's just kind of weird that like, all the Japanese stuff is actually written and performed way better for me than all the American stuff. I don't think it's like fully half and half. There's definitely more to the Japanese side than the American side than the Japanese. I kind of wish this was more half and half, to be honest. I think the film would have served a lot better if it was like that. Yeah, definitely enjoyed the Japanese side of this.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Especially in terms of acting. Favorite performance, Spires?
I'd probably go with the Admiral Nagumo. He's got a kind of interesting look, to him. Like, he's the very old Admiral, the much older one.
Yeah.
With more experience and stuff. Definitely looks the part and definitely sounds the part.
Yeah.
And especially, like, when everything's lost and he's like, I should go down with the ship. And the guy's like, no, you can't, we need your leadership and stuff. And you just look at him and he's like, oh my God, what the fuck have I done?
Yeah, he's definitely my favorite on the Japanese side. I think my favorite overall probably is Woody Harrelson. I think just simply because he's not just overacting. He's just nice and calm. He brings some calmness to the film. And he's just, Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson is never bad in anything. So I just really liked his performance, and he has the best line. So my favorite line.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So yeah, I'll go for Woody Harrelson. Yeah. So my score for acting, a 7.3, I think, because a lot of the performances, they're just dialed up too much. I know it's a war film and that, but even with the scenes where they're not fighting anyone, it just feels like they're trying way too hard, and it's just way too much. I know I'm a big salty guy, and Woody Harrelson and the Japanese actors really save it in terms of acting. What's your score then for acting?
Yeah, okay, that's quite interesting. Yeah, I think maybe I'll just go the same. I'll go 7.3.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Midway. Midway gets 38.6. So it's a tight one. The Day After Tomorrow wins with 39.5. They probably will end up fairly low on the list at the end of the year, but never mind. Midway is still really interesting in terms of the history. So it certainly is worth a watch if you just want to know a little bit about or get an initial insight in the Second World War history in the Pacific to get you going, I guess, to find out your knowledge there. So next week, as Uncharted will be out in cinemas, which has been in development for like God knows how long, and it's finally here. So we'll be doing video game adaptations next time.
You're going to have to wade through an entire crap fest. There's an ocean of excrement of video games to movies. It's going to be really hard to find something that's any good.
Yeah.
I don't get why that is. Just so many video game adaptations are fucking awful. So yeah, this is going to be difficult.
Yeah, so get ready for some video game film bashing for next time.
I'm serious. I reckon we could do a top 10, top 50, list of like the worst fucking ones, and it would be most of the ones.
Yeah.
Some really bad movies, but
yeah, right. Thanks, Boaz, as our local historian. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off. Thank you.